So welcome to the How to Get Rich Quick message. I'm gonna share my 5 steps to eternal wealth. Say, I am good enough. I'm gonna get this. I receive that impartation. I receive the gold. Because I am worthy. Amen. Were you there when I shared the gold testimony? That is so cool. So I actually have a history in gold. You didn't know that. Magnificent. And God revealed, sort of like opened the crust of the earth, and I saw all of the gold. And I know Ezekiel 11, he says all the gold and all the silver is mine, and obviously the fullness of the earth. But I don't know if you guys know that a kilogram of gold is pretty much the dimensions of a cell phone, of an iPhone. The bigger one's the iPhone Max, which is roughly R1,000,000 today. So there's millions and millions and tons of gold on the earth and in the crust and still to be discovered and in Fort Knox and so forth. And that's all God. He doesn't have a money problem. We have a money problem. But it's not a money in my wallet problem. It's an understanding in my head problem. If you guys can leave today with, ultimately I want you to get 2 things. One is, it's not easy. It's not supposed to be easy. If you want easy money, easy wealth, be a scallum and steal other people's money and, move drugs, that's the easy side. The difficult side, especially for us in the kingdom, is it is very challenging. Why? Because God will never bless us, like Bill Johnson said. He won't bless us to death, right? So carrying the weight and the significance of wealth, the responsibility of wealth, cracks many people. Okay, I can say that with a lot of authority because I've lost everything 3 times. I'm 40 years old. I've lost everything 3 times. I'll share a little bit about it. And I know that journey is every time I get to the place where it looks like I've got money and it feels like I've got money, and then I bomb out and trip out and things don't work out. And God says, great, let's try again, start from scratch. All right, so I think the second most important thing is it's a journey. It's not, all journeys aren't the same, but the goal is in the journey. It's not in the destination. The end goal is not you on a couch with a fat bank balance. God's got no interest in that. It is who He and what He does inside of you. It's who He builds in you to become. Ultimately, He's got the end in mind in our lives. And the mechanics of what you choose, obviously through obedience, is the very thing that's going to build you into that person that He wants you to be. He wants you to be that upright character in eternity one day, right? And our journey on earth is the building blocks to there. Now, if you're in business, or that's going to be part of your mission. All right, so understand that business or money, let's call it money, because not all of us make money with business, but money is first and foremost spiritual. You got to get it. So for many years, I thought, okay, I got to bring God into my business world, because I get to the office and then I do stuff and then it's 5 o'clock and I'm like, oh, I didn't speak to Him. I didn't think about Him. I didn't pray anything. Then I go home and then I'm, convicted because God's not in my business. But the moment I understood money is spiritual, it works on spiritual values and principles. And it's part of my business. It's the very core that drives my business. It was no longer I'm in the business world or I'm in the ministry world. I'm driving things from a spiritual perspective in business. I want to keep it very practical. I want to keep it very, very real. I want you guys to leave with a couple of nuggets of gold. So a little bit of testimonies. So I want to give you the context within a journey. So it's a relational journey. Good. He wants you to face a bigger battle every single time. So the 3rd time I lost everything was last year. Wasn't too long ago, right? And the previous 2 times were very bad. So the first time I nearly died in my head. The second time was even worse because there was a lot more things involved. And, in the moment, you think you're never going to get through this. I mean, how you cannot even see the end. Everything comes to a complete standstill. You bite all your nails and your toenails off. I lost like 10 Ks. I didn't eat for 2 weeks. The second, just completely crazy. And then the third time, it was like I was a bit more prepared for what's coming. Now, lots of mechanics to why it happened. But the fact of the matter is, like David faced Goliath because he had history, I could face whatever was coming, whatever the situation was. So I care for my mom, I care for my sis. Well, they're part of the business. So there's 15 families. It's quite a big boat to sink. I felt very responsible. I still feel very responsible. I believe, it's in the notes, but I believe, leaders, secular leaders sacrifice people for the numbers. Good leaders sacrifice the numbers for the people. So, I mean, we went through a 2-year season in COVID where we literally burned like R500,000 a month, keeping our staff, keeping our offices, keeping our talent, knowing, we're burning capital, but not losing the people. So that's a tough decision when you're in it and you make it every single month. You're like, oh. While sitting in this third, roller coaster, I felt more prepared. I felt better equipped to, from obedience, wait on the Lord, follow His guidance, follow His lead. So, because I lose everything, because I've lost everything 3 times, it's got a lot to do with my personality, and I'm a fast mover, and I make things happen very quickly, maybe too quick, not great foundations, blah, blah, all of that stuff. So that's my journey. So in being, this task-orientated, high-risk, doer kind of persona, I get up in the morning and I've got 10 things that I want to do, and within this whole thing, I want this attorney and that attorney, and I'm fighting it with this angle, and it's torture in my to not do what I want to do, but wait on the Lord. So we've got a joke now in the office. There's this leather chair. And when the staff says, when Johan goes to sit in the chair, things are going to happen. Because God can really run your business or your responsibilities better than you. He told me long ago, he said, most of the time you're just breaking stuff. So the less you are involved, the better for all of us. And it's really that practical. This concept really, really helps me in my understanding. So life, my mentor once said, life is like a cart on a railroad track. There's 2 spore, there's 2 tracks. The one side is your ministry/financial life. The one side, your ministry/relationship life. And your other side is your business/mission/task life. Now, typically, people in business only focus on the one side, and people in ministry only focus on the other side. But you can't separate the two. The stability of your family is the cart, and your kids is within the cart, and so forth. So your experience in life of stability very much depends on both of them. We can't just have business. All right, I've tried that. So I've got a ministry background, I've got a business background. There were seasons in my life where I was only in ministry. There were seasons in my life where I was only in business. But every single time I'm frustrated doing only just one of the two. Now, it's a massive thing juggling these balls. But again, the perspective of understanding, the moment I understood money is spiritual, and it's actually all one thing, it made a lot of sense. It really helped me in my personal journey. You cannot just be relational and ministry. Now, listen, I'm 100% for missions, and there was many times that I wanted to pull the plug and go be a missionary somewhere, and I love that, and I support that, and we fund missions, etc., etc. But that's a very specific call from God, and if He tells you to do that, then you do that. The moment when I wasn't certain if I should get married or not back in the day when I was a young kid, so I got onto a mountain and I het loetjies getrek, and God said, marry, 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 marry. So, so I know Debbie's my wife, and she's supposed to be my wife, and if I didn't have that word, she wouldn't have been my wife anymore. But the point is, in that obedience, I knew God was setting us on a course to be something as a family. He asked something of me to become something, as opposed to necessarily be a Paul or whatever, right? So that's in following the call of obedience in your heart. Now, you got to conquer finances, period. It's part of his world. It's part of his design. He made it. I didn't make it. We can't cop out and say, no, God needs to take care of that side. I'm going to only take care of this side. He will for a long season. And there's a lot of grace in it. I'm the naughtiest demekar guy you will ever meet. All right. I literally use up other people's grace in my personal world. Right? God has bailed me out more times than you can imagine. Honestly. But somewhere along the line, you're going to have to take responsibility for finances. You're going to have to take responsibility for provision. You're going to have to take responsibility for the stuff that you teach your children in the way that you do things. We can't run away from it. All right, so just take up that responsibility. Take up that knowing that says, right, God, Johan says today that I've got a responsibility in ministry. We all have. It's the high call of God. Preach the gospel, cleanse the leper, heal the sick, raise the dead. Period. That's all of it. We can't change that mandate. But we cannot, because of that, abandon our responsibility to finances, provision, our children, and all of that stuff. Absorb it, take it in. I know it's a big responsibility, but it is what it is. So money is spiritual. October month last year, So I had to voluntarily liquidate my business because of, things that happened and so forth. We probably wrote off, many millions of rands. And in October month, we were waiting for the liquidation authorization to happen so that we can restart the business and sort of like carry on again. Now, two things happened. One was I had to get money to buy the business from the liquidation, right? So a business in liquidation is not yet an asset because technically it's worth nothing and we're going to scratch it. But there's a bit of assets and there's a bit of, things that we wanted to buy out and put it into the new business. That can only happen with authority. Now, any legal person looking at it says, hang on, what am I buying? There's no paper yet to say that I can buy this, it is for sale. So we waited for the liquidator to sign this thing. The liquidator said, the moment I sign that, you've got a day at max to put the X million rand in our bank account. Otherwise, it's a whole, ruckus. So when we signed the papers, and I sent it back to the liquidators, it's a very short story, but within a 15-minute window, I had a 15-minute window where we signed, he signed, and we paid the money, where the opposing party came back with a massive counter-attack thing and so forth and so forth. Literally a 15-minute window. It was immense. The money borrower was a complete stranger. We shook hands. He flew down. He came to see our business. We shook hands, and he put 5 million rand in my bank account. Doesn't really normally happen like that. Trust me. I've tried to raise money on a gazillion accounts, and it's normally a lot more difficult than that. In the month of October, so from the 1st of October till the 12th of October, we were allowed to still trade within the business by the liquidators because it would be the best for the running concern when we buy it, right? We did about 1.5 million in sales, in turnover, for that half a month. Now, when the liquidation was signed and we shifted into the new business, predominantly or primarily, in my opinion, I did a few things, or I opened a few doors, or I allowed people into the business world that I believe gave a hold to the enemy on our business. That 10th of October, there was a break-in in our office in Paul, believe it or not. They didn't steal anything, but it just signified to me sort of like the open door thing. The 13th, switched over, new business, 100% ownership back in our hands, none of that stuff. And we did 7.5 million rand turnover in the last 13, 14 days of the month. Money is spiritual. It carries spiritual significance. We don't do it the way of the world. That was a big lesson to me. I mean, it's called pragmatic atheism. Something's up in our business, and then we need to fix what's wrong, and then we go speak to a lawyer, we go speak to an accountant, we speak to 4 or 5 buddies, a mentor, and all of that's important. I have all of that. I've got a couple of mentors in my life. I've got guys that advise us on many various levels, but ultimately, you have to go and seek God first. or at least somewhere in the mix. He has to be number 6 in your mentorship schedule, because most people literally just don't bother in your business world in seeking his answer, seeking his direction. Fransjo van die Kerk, I don't know if you guys know him, he's from Margon. They fund 800 ministries worldwide now. He wrote a book, Doing Business with Purpose. And they've got a very cool structure of trusts and shareholders and advisory boards and everything. But it ultimately boils down to 51% ownership is held by a trust that there are 5 independents and 2 family members. And if all 7 people do not agree on the decision, they don't make the move. They don't proceed. So I asked him, because it sounds like this massive success story. They built these dams and King Price and all of these things. And I said, well, do you guys ever make mistakes? He says, absolutely. Every time we didn't listen. Anytime we made a decision without going to the process of trusting God and waiting for Him. And he says, He's our high partner. If He waits 6 months to answer us, then we wait. Then we simply do not make the decision and proceed with that business because God didn't give us that answer. And I think that is so, so important. I want to tell you a testimony. My wife she's God's blue-eyed girl, and every time she's in the car, we get a parking right in front of the place and all of that cool stuff. So she says, property, we need to get into property. And I'm like, no, I hate property. It's too slow and it's tedious, and I can't flip it or can't. And she just literally feels properties. And eventually I'm hurtful and I'm like, listen, I gave her this impossible mission. I said, find a property with this, bedrooms and this and this and this and this for that price. Then we'll buy it. Boom. She and God pulls out a property like that. And I'm like, oh, okay. So we buy the property. That property, without us knowing, has mixed use residential rights on, and we can build a 25-meter high, 5-story building, 50 flats, 100 million rand project, blah, blah, blah. That's God in the exponential. Where did it come from, that obedience? Even not obeying her husband, which was a once-off. Because it has that rights, we decided not to, we wanted to renovate, so she found another property. So now I'm in on the bandwagon. We baby-wised our kids, right? Who knows baby-wise? Yeah. Okay, so Debbie read the books and I complied. She says we do it this way, I listen. Pretty much the same story. If she says property, I say go. So she finds this property and it's way above our pay grade, right? It's like the impossible property to get. But she feels God, I pray, I can see it. They're like, okay, cool, I trust you, we trust God. And when we get the OTP, the person's name is Dreyer, the seller. She is Dreyer. Well, we first made an offer, which they laughed at. And then on the counter offer, they accepted. And when we got the agreement, we said, well, this thing needs to happen. I think it took us 8 months to buy that property, or 6 months to buy that property, because we knew we were hearing God's voice. We knew we were moving into obedience. We probably made more money on that property in the last 3 years than what we've made in the business because of obedience. All right, I'm telling you these testimonies so that you understand money is spiritual. Wealth and growing in wealth is spiritual. All right, God only works with what we give Him. He's not going to come and take stuff out of your cupboard. He's not going to come and violate the boundaries that you put in your world. And He's going to take seed that He can go and multiply. He's going to use the seed that you give Him. And oftentimes, fear keeps us back from trusting God to take us further. All right. We own 5 properties now. We could buy none of them. All of them have a similar story. All of them have a miraculous angle to it because it's supernatural. If you think you can run business, and even your work environment, guys, I get it. I've been in a mundane work environment, and it's kills your soul. But don't make it that. I'm gonna jump on this rabbit trail quick. In our business now, we've got a worship facility, and it costs us a lot of money. We kept that worship facility. In my opinion, that worship facility, it's a second office next to our office that you can walk through, which is our lounge, where we do Paul Revival. Through losing everything, burning all of that money, liquidation, the whole thing, the first thing anybody with a financial background, any chartered accountant would say, oh, cut this, let the coffee machine go, close this facility, sell the furniture. And we said never. because this is our prayer room. This is our boiler room. I use the word arrange your affairs. You know, how many of us have a closet that you can close the door and disappear with God? I'm not saying your man cave. You don't disappear with God in your man cave. You fiddle with your toys. A closet is a dark place that you close your door and it's just you and him. Not a place where you can get distracted. Right? You can't work and pray in the same place, in my opinion, in your house facility. Make space for God. Give him a space. So we have that facility in the office. And that thing saved our life, in business-wise. That thing saved our team. I mean, we pray together. We commune together. It's God's place. That's where the glory comes in. Is where we seek him and search for him and look to him first and foremost in our business. Because that spiritual principles carries over into our business and things just happen and work his way. Very important. All right, so business is supernatural. The world does it to the left, and we do it you guys, it's easy. But ultimately, God is not interested in your career path. He's building you as a person. It's not about the world's way. It's about trusting him, waiting on him, and implementing what he says. Oftentimes very counterintuitive to ways of the world. Just after in liquidation, we funded 2 of the Paul Revival events. And post-liquidation, we paid for the big one. The big event cost 400,000 rand. It's a lot of money to give away, post-tax. God said, do it. We did it. We did it in faith. There wasn't any money yet. We literally took capital in faith, and we hosted the event. If you tell that to any financial person out there, he would be like, bad management, we need to slap you on the wrist for irresponsible financial management, etc., etc. Luckily, my mom is very easy with, she's the CFO. But it's not the way the world does it. Does that carry a harvest? Unbelievably so. Just had a guy knock on my door in our business. He wants to give us a lot of money. Out of the ordinary, out of asking for it, out of literally, I can just sense God's hand in this whole process. I want to touch on sowing and reaping. You sow yourself out of financial difficulty. Period. It is probably the foremost place where you actually show God that you trust him. Put your money where your mouth is. Put your pocket into it. In this liquidation season, God said, I need to sow 20% of my gross salary. Now, to put that in perspective, if you earn 100,000 rand or more, you are taxed 45%. So you're left with 55. If you sow 20% of your gross, you're left with 35. I literally sowed, and I'm still doing it because it's a habit now, but we literally sowed 20% of our net of Debbie and myself's combined salary every single month, still to this day. Who checks the bank account? One of you two can confirm. Obedience, counterintuitive, spiritual principle. When I was in the gold business, we would do 15, 20 million rand a month business. The whole safe is full of cash. Everywhere is money. Everywhere is gold. It's crazy. But I never had money. Like I was always broke. It was like there's a scripture in Proverbs that says your pockets have holes in. It's just, because I was living in the wrong world and principles and values. Now, my budget never works out, ever. But we have more money than what we've had before. And we've sowed more and we give more, and it's unbelievable. It's literally that you can't explain it. It doesn't work out on an Excel spreadsheet because it's spiritually driven and it's from obedience. So I want to absolutely challenge you guys. You have to sow more than you have ever sowed before. Simply reach into your pocket and give it. It's almost crazy. It's literally almost crazy. But trust me, it's the only place God says, test me. Test me, and I will show you. Guys, if you want a breakthrough, you sow yourself into a breakthrough. Next one. Let's talk through a couple of those values. Would you believe me if I tell you that your business is motivated by love, not by numbers, not by money? All right, God told me a long time ago that you're going to stand before me one day with regards to your business. And now we're talking the 5 talents, the 2 talents, the 1 talent, good and faithful servant, that old parable, right? There's a space for that. The more you have, the more you'll be given to. It does get harder. He's going to say, what did you do with my people? What is his economy? It's people. It's relationships. He's not going to say, oh, well done, you made it here with 100 million in the bank. That's pointless. It's zero value to him. He's going to say, for a season, you were responsible for those 15 souls in your business. What did you do with them? How did you handle them? Did you shift them somewhere else? Did you move them into a different space in their life? Did you help them with their budgets? Did you help them with these financial principles? Did you teach them anything? And I mean, I've had many people through my life, business-wise, were Topwatch and your business a stepping stone for them? Or was it a stumbling block? You know, what were you transposing into their lives? That's a massive, that's the principle. And I mean, in the watch industry now, it's very quiet. So, you know, one of our competitors got 50 million rand from a funding house, et cetera, and the rumor is they only sold like 1 watch a month. We're on target, we're profitable Friday already, so now we have a whole week of, you know, just banking, and it's unbelievable. And all of us are dumbstruck. Let me tell you this testimony, it's not even in the slides, but I follow God in obedience on a very sensitive, very, like all of us, but what I want to try and convey is it's a very gentle nudge in the journey on a daily basis, as opposed to hard left, hard right. It doesn't work out that way. So God is busy with you here, and eventually when you get to the destination and you look at it back and you're like, yo, we came all the way like this, right? That's the way He works with us. So God's leading me through this knife business, Top Knife, and we launch it and so on. So how I know He's in it. In the month of April, I built the business, websites, the whole thing. 1 May, we launched the business. So for 2 months, I'm not involved in Topwatch to a big extent, right? Because my head's on this different thing. And it's not a money thing at all. It's more an obedience thing. That was 2 of our most successful months of the year. May was our most successful month in the history of the business with the least amount of capital and the lowest amount of staff. Complete miracle. And I'm not even in the business. I'm not even involved the way I'm supposed to be. I see God's hand. It's supernatural principle. Not, completely counterintuitive. Okay, so time management, absolutely important. If you're in a day-to-day job, just break down your time and decide when and how you're going to give more of yourself to Him, period. Because if you can't carry the responsibility of time management, how are you going to carry the responsibility of financial management? You see, when you manage your own thing, I mean, I can drive any car I want, I can go to any place I want, I can fly any class I want and have a holiday anywhere in the world I want. But instead of spending 300,000 rand in December on a holiday, we feed 15,000 kids in Paul. Argument's sake. Do you understand? I can manage my time and I can manage finances. But believe me, there was a time in my life where I couldn't manage either. And if you trusted with time right now and you've got an 8 to 5, manage that time effectively. Sow more than you've ever sowed before. And I promise you, you're going to start seeing breakthroughs in your life that's miraculous. If God says, if there's a prompting to take a step further in something challenging, buy a property or, whatever He says, we've got a stream running through our backyard. I think God told me to start bottling water. Debbie doesn't agree yet. But I was like, God, I need something new in my life. He was like, yeah, because I'm frustrated with all of this water running through my house and we're not doing anything with it. Anyway, so whatever He tells you to, move with it and follow it in obedience. And trust Him for that fruit, because it's spiritual. It's not about, can you fund it? It's not about, do you know how to do it? It's not about understanding or reading the book. It's about following Him in obedience. You guys get it? Your business has to be supernatural for it to be, gratifying. Otherwise, you're in this mundane thing of crunching numbers. I can't believe that's from God. You're never going to convince me. All right. We fast in our business, we worship in our business, we've got scriptures sticked up everywhere, we pray a lot of the time, we worship in the afternoons, 12 o'clock, Ruben will put worship on, we'll just sit in the lounge, just wait on God. And then the last one, Yanni said it, the mission is the end game. I want to just briefly touch on this. You know, Hollywood portrays this very nicely, is, you know, they take these young stars and then they, you know, in our world, we would say it's blessing, you know, so they got the stage and they got the money and they got the girl and they got all of this stuff. And then, you know, 30 years later, I know Britney Spears is a big example now, but she's completely man down. She's a goner, right? Her life is destroyed. Poor thing. But that's the world's way. That's not God's way. God's way is the complete opposite. All right. A wise man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. That is a very long-term, very strategic, very patient journey with God in building. And it is the one property that leads to the second. It is the one business idea that leads to the second. It is obedience in this step that leads to that step. And it's all building on a very firm, solid foundation. Okay, that was my journey. Johan, you got to move slower and you got to leave more stuff in my hands. When I started doing that, God said, great. You know, and it's within funding. Let me give you a very practical example. My previous, you know, there was funding in my business that was probably not right. Now I've looked very differently to this next guy that wants to fund our business. Because who, why, what's the mechanics, what's the responsibility? God is our source. If we are not 100% certain that this X amount of X is not from God, we won't take it. Because it's spiritual. You guys get it. Yeah, I cannot stress that point. We have to be very intentional, very long-term. If you have the end in mind, and you say, God, this is where I see myself to be, and what I said there, if your dreams don't scare you, they're probably not from God. Right? We have to dream bigger. We have to give Him more. And if that's what you peg to say, I want to be there, start living it on a daily basis with what's in your hands. Because that's how we manage our responsibility. You're going to help with ministry. Cool. If you guys can stand, I don't think there's anybody here that does not want a breakthrough or an increase or more help in. I just want to see if I can open something up here. I want to read you guys something. Who's read the testimony of? I'm going to skip it. Okay, I'll let your hands. Heavenly Father, we thank you for impartation. Lord, thank you that right now you break the strongholds of wrong mindsets. Father, break the spirit of poverty. Break the belief that we cannot do it, that it's not been dealt to us, Lord, that it's our parents' fault, that I was in the wrong school, that I'm not good enough, that my children eat us out of the home. Father, break all of that nonsense and help us this morning to understand that we are your appointed children and that we are heirs of all the gold in the world. And not just physical gold, God. I'm talking about the wealth of your kingdom. I'm talking about the richness, Father. I'm talking about the fat and the mirth, God. I'm talking about the milk and honey of your kingdom, Lord. I'm talking about our spirits being completely satisfied, totally equipped, God, that you've called us and that you've given us to all things that pertain to life and godliness, Lord. That the very fullness of Jesus is within us. And that we can just to see that, Lord, that we can just tap into the realization of the more, of the enough, of the superabundant God that has given us everything, Lord. That you want us to be a blessing, that you want our cups to overflow, that you want our harvests, God, to be so big that our storehouses cannot contain it, that it'll flow over our walls into our neighborhoods, into our families' houses, Lord. Thank you that we can see you as the provider, that we will no longer live under the fear of, tithing a little bit, or giving a 50-year or giving a 100-year, Father, but that we will have the responsibility that the very next payment after my salary is a 10% into the house where I worship. That the time we have, Lord, that we will give it to you in a bigger way than we've done before. That we will arrange our affairs to take us out of the rat race in our minds, and that we will serve you with all of our hearts and with all of our minds, God. And that you will open the floodgates of heaven, Lord. That you will send new rain. That you will give the sowers seed, Lord. It says in your word that you will give seed to the sowers, God. I declare over every person in this hall today, God, that there will be a new level of sower mentality in their hearts and in their lives, God. That they will understand that they can't outgive God. And Father, I thank you for the upliftment of this house, Lord. I know there's just a shift in the spirit, in provision and in providing for this house, Lord. That this house will be a sower in this community, Lord. Not just of kingdom and messages and sermons and words and worship, Father God, but in the physical where there is need. And we thank you for that. In Jesus' mighty name.